Your spirit has a rhythm that no one else can discern. No one else can hear it. Neither your parents nor your partners, and not even your teachers or advisors. A frequency that is so subtle and so deeply woven into the fabric of your being that even you might have missed it in the midst of the chaos that was caused by your efforts to become the person that the world asked you to be. When the world stops whirling, when your identity crumbles, and when your roles disintegrate, you hear it faintly, a pulse beneath the pandemonium. However, this only happens in the rare moments of silence. That is the frequency of your spirituality. That is the sound that you were born with. A quote attributed to Carl Jung states that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. However, despite this, how many people are willing to pay the price for such a gift? In order to discover your own personal spiritual frequency, you must first remove the false harmonies that you have been compelled to sing, the borrowed beliefs that you are like a costume, and the plaudits that you relentlessly pursue like a ghost. This is not a voyage of becoming. Rather, it is a journey of unbecoming, a shedding of layers until what is left is the stillness that has never required permission, never required validation, and never required understanding. This is something that the majority of people are unaware of. Some people believe that awakening is about gaining information, meditating more intensely, and vibrating at a higher frequency. True awakening, on the other hand, frequently involves a descent into the muck, into the shadow, and into the forgotten basement of your psyche, where the parts of you that have been lost scream out in voices that you have attempted to stifle. If you're looking for a particular frequency, you will not find it in the heavens. Rather, it is hidden in the basement. When you stop striving to be virtuous, enlightened, or remarkable, and instead ask yourself, what have I abandoned within me in exchange for acceptance? You will find it. This is because the world has conditioned you to tune into its frequency. It is only when you dare to sit in the silence of your discomfort that you will find it. Very early on, it began. The tones that were rewarded and those that were punished were brought to your attention. In an effort to avoid being rejected, to be lovable, and to survive, you modified your performance. Moreover, by doing so, you reduced the volume that was being played on your soul. Fitting in was mistaken with belonging to the group. At the expense of authenticity, you chose safety. It is not possible for the soul to forget. While it patiently waits in the background, it broadcasts its frequency, hoping that you would remember it at some point in the future. Desperation is a common emotion that accompanies that moment. Your career, your relationship, and the identity you clung to are all taken away from you. It seems as though everything is falling apart around you. However, what is actually taking place is that everything that is false is being eliminated. The majority of individuals will flee at this point. There is a state of terror, numbness, and distraction. However, there are not many people who choose to sit in the fire. They're the ones who are sick of faking. And in that fire, something ancient and sacred begins to stir. This is not because you have brought something new into your possession. Rather, it is because you have finally stopped lying to yourself. Jung referred to this as the process of individuation, which is also known as the journey toward wholeness. During this journey, all of your shattered selves are requested to return to the circle. It's not about being perfect, it's about doing everything together. It is not a mistake that you are experiencing any of these emotions: fear, anger, jealousy, or longing. The entire thing is a component of the symphony. There is no such thing as a single note. Rather, your frequency is a composition. Comprehensive chord constructed from each and every feeling you have ever had, as well as each and every truth you have dared to say while no one was listening. The music that has always been yours will start to come to your ears when you finally give yourself permission to feel everything without passing judgment on it. But this is not a simple task. Your character, which is the mask you've been wearing for such a long time, does not give up without a struggle. The purpose of its construction was to safeguard you. It provided you with a means of functioning in a world that frequently penalizes sincerity. Jung had a profound comprehension of this masquerade. He was aware that the persona was not an adversary, but rather a stage in the process of evolving. When we confuse the mask with the self, we are creating a problem for ourselves. There is more to you than the happy front that you present to the world. You're not the courageous person who always manages to keep everything together. If you profess to have transcended all human weaknesses, then you are not the enlightened one we are talking about. You are something more profound, wilder, and undiluted. Not in your perfection, but in your desire to be genuine, to be naked in your truth, to say, I don't have it all figured out. I'm still bleeding. I'm still becoming, and that is enough. In fact, that is everything. Your unique spiritual frequency arises not in your perfection, but in your willingness to be real. This is due to the fact that your entry point to the divine is located within the depths of your vulnerability. The soul does not communicate via bravado. Rather, it communicates through trembling, through whispers, through the language of dreams, and through metaphors. It is not when you triumph that it comes to you, but rather when you submit. It is when you go down on your knees in the middle of the night and murmur, I can't do this alone. That is when your frequency starts to raise, not because you have been chosen, but because you have finally chosen yourself. And so the work becomes this, not to fix yourself, but to feel yourself, to slow down enough to hear the delicate hum beneath your thoughts, to become aware of which situations boost your energy and which drain you, to become conscious of the people who elevate your nervous system and those that dim it, and to slow down enough to hear the quiet hum that lies underlying your ideas. There is no book or guru that can provide you with your one-of-a-kind frequency. Rather, it is located within your body, in your breath, in your resistance, and in your longing. It can be discovered in the memories of your childhood that still causes your throat to tighten, in the secret longing that you have buried beneath layers of shame, and in the rage that you have never allowed yourself to feel. Your spirit is waiting for you here, and this is the place where your song is playing. Additionally, in order to awaken, one must become sufficiently calm, truthful, and courageous in order to finally listen. It is precisely because of this that the majority of spiritual awakenings start in times of crisis, because it is only when the cacophony gets intolerable that we start looking for the silence. We only get a peek of the self when the persona begins to break down. Only when the mask becomes suffocating do we rip it off and scream, "Who am I really?" And if you're lucky, if you don't run back to your distractions, you'll hear a voice, not loud but steady, saying, "Welcome home," because this is the great paradox. Your frequency has always been with you, but you had to lose yourself to hear it. Through the flames of disillusionment, the death of who you believed you were, and the sadness of your own forgetting, you were required to walk through both of these experiences. In order for something more genuine to emerge from the ashes, life must first disintegrate. You needed to be shattered in order to become who you truly are. At this moment, when you are here, unprocessed, awake, and uncertain, you are more in tune with your frequency than you have ever been before. However, you should not attempt to describe it or to capture it in any way. Allow it to guide you. Make it move via your relationships, the decisions you make, and the art you create. Make it the silent compass that guides you through life and transforms it into a sacred manifestation of the truth. When Jung talked about the self, he meant the entirety of who you are, not simply the conscious part of yourself that you have associated with. This is something that Jung meant. There is no such thing as the self. Rather, it is a presence, a force that will pull you into completeness. It is not necessary for you to be flawless. All that is required of you is to be truly yourself. Therefore, when you connect yourself with it, your frequency will become recognizable. It is not necessary to yell in order to be heard, nor is it necessary to persuade someone of the value that you possess. Without a doubt, you exude. Because you have recalled, you have become the medicine that you were always intended to be. This is not because you have arrived at your destination. Now, the question that needs to be asked is not how I can wake up. Rather, the question that needs to be asked is whether or not I am willing to listen to the reality that I have been trying to ignore. I have numbed the agony, but am I willing to feel it again? Would it be possible for me to retire from performing and begin living? It is not something that you acquire. Rather, it is something that you discover with your own particular spiritual frequency. In addition, the instant you stop trying to achieve something and begin to submit, it will become apparent in the calm, the silence, and the precious commonplace moments that occur throughout your life. When you finally get yourself to live from that frequency, everything will be different. Rather than pursuing, you cease demonstrating your point. When you begin to attract souls who perceive your truth, rather than folks who admire your mask, you move beyond that. You begin the process of creation not out of fear, but rather out of alignment. It is not to fill a gap that you begin to love. Rather, it is to share it with others. The ability to discover your own frequency is a powerful tool. It is the revolution of becoming yourself. Not the self that they taught you to be, not the self that you felt you had to become, but the self that has always been singing quietly beneath the cacophony. This is the revolution. And now, at long last, you are paying attention. You are showing remembrance. What you are awakening is not a new version of yourself. Rather, it is the person you have always been. And in that holy remembrance, the universe finally answers because it has always been waiting, not for the version of you that the world praises, but for the true you, the one who has the courage to listen to the song and live by its rhythm, regardless of the consequences. This is your frequency. This is your home. This is the truth that matters to you. Moreover, once you start living in that truth, there is no going back. This is not because you are barred from going back. Rather, it is because the illusion no longer fits. The old you, like a snake that has outgrown its skin, becomes too little in comparison to the immensity that you have discovered within yourself. When you once participated in conversations, you now find that they are empty. Where you used to run to get away from things now feel like they are suffocating you. People who used to adore your mask now appear perplexed by the fact that you are no longer there. When you return to your frequency, you will lose the version of your life that was constructed around your suppression. This is the cost of returning to your frequency. On the other hand, something that is immeasurably more sacred is beginning to develop in its stead. It is not that you become brutally honest with other people. Rather, it is that you become radically honest with yourself. To exist, you no longer require authorization from outside sources. It is a seismic shift, but it may not necessarily appear significant from the outside. You stop asking the world, "Am I good enough?" and start telling the world, "This is who I am." This shift is seismic. The majority of the time, it is peaceful, a kind refusal, a sensitive boundary, or a prayer that is muttered that says, "I remember now." Your life starts to reorganize itself not around what is popular or easy, but rather around what is true, and your frequency becomes your guide as you make this transition. Your compass will be based on that. Not all people will be able to hear it, and not all people will comprehend it. But those who do, those who feel it, will find you because frequency knows frequency. However, those who do not feel it will find you. When you live in alignment, you no longer have to try to force love, pursue success, or pretend to be at peace with yourself. Simply put, you transform into the vibration that you are looking for, and whatever is intended for you will come to meet you at that level. It is not a static identity that Jung was referring to when he spoke about the mystery of the self. Rather, it is a living current, a pulse that cannot be contained in definitions or ideologies. Your dreams, your intuition, and your desires are all places where it can be found. It manifests itself in synchronicities and symbols, as well as in times of awareness that are calm. The only way to live from it is to acknowledge that you are not here to replicate the trip of another person. Rather, you are here to follow the road that only your feet can perceive. It is not from blueprints that you will shape your life. Rather, it is from the truth that lies within you. Because of this, however, you will need to trust yourself more than you ever have before. One must take the risk of being misunderstood. It is imperative that you let go of the desire to be liked and instead focus on discovering who you are, first by yourself and subsequently by other people. This is the portion of waking that is characterized by solitude, the abyss that exists between letting go of the past and embracing the present, the solitary space in which you question whether you have lost your mind or whether you are finally coming into it. However, this is the point at which your frequency becomes clear. At this point, the signal can be considered to be strong. As time goes on, you get more specific in your ability to hear the sound of your soul. Not because someone tells you, but because you feel it in your bones. You begin to recognize when you're doing something that is not on the right track. The tuning, the attunement, and the refinement are all acts that are part of the profound inner activity. As you continue down this path, you come to the realization that your frequency is not a destination. Rather, it is a devotion, a daily practice of alignment, and a willingness to accept the truth rather than the comfort. As a result of this choice being repeated throughout time, everything is transformed. It is not because you talk more loudly that the people around you will eventually start to notice you. Rather, it is because your presence communicates something that words could never express. You become magnetic, not in the sense of being shallow, but rather in the sense of being soulful. You have a resonance that is able to communicate directly with the parts of other people that are hidden. When someone lives their life in accordance with who they genuinely are, you become a mirror for what is possible. And the message that you convey through your life is not a sermon, but rather a symphony. Every decision, every breath, and every limit takes on the form of a note in. Every time people hear your song, they listen not only with their ears, but also with their hearts. Being able to embody your spiritual awakening frequency is what it means to feel this way. This is not about isolating oneself from the world. Rather, it is about coming back to it with fresh perspectives. Eyes that are able to see beyond illusions. Eyes that are able to identify soul. And eyes that are aware that every single human being is carrying a symphony that is uniquely theirs. Instead of trying to dominate or impress others, the most valuable gift you can give is your own unfiltered sound. Your goal should be to harmonize. The ability to enter rooms and boost the vibration simply by being oneself across the space. It is not through force, but via frequency that healing happens. This is how it ripples out. It is not necessary for you to convert anyone, nor is it necessary for you to fix anyone. All that is required of you is to become so profoundly in tune with your own truth that it motivates other people to discover their own truth. It is the music that only you're capable of playing, and it is the revolution, the awakening, and the music. And when you continue to live in this manner for a sufficient amount of time, an incredible phenomenon begins to take place. Life begins to react differently. You're beginning to become aware of the fact that what was once a struggle is now a feeling of flow. The thing that used to make people afraid now makes them curious. Because your frequency, which was formerly repressed, now leads. What was once something that required effort now begins to flow naturally. Your choices are influenced by it, your decisions are filtered by it, and your relationships are shaped by it. Also, as you continue to follow it, you will stop betraying yourself. Suddenly, you stop making excuses for your very existence. You stop reducing the amount of light you emit in order to make other people feel more comfortable. Instead, you start to respect the energy that you have. You start trying to preserve your tranquility. The unfolding begins to inspire trust in you. Although this does not mean that life will become simpler, it will become more aligned. And when everything is in harmony, even difficulties have a sense of purpose. Even sadness has a sacred quality, and even loneliness has a sense of being complete. This is the paradox of living an awakened life. You become more grounded, not less, more human, not detached, more alive, not distant, and more grounded, not less anchored. Mostly due to the fact that spiritual awakening is not about evading the world. Rather, it is about connecting with it from the core of your truth. The key is to infuse every interaction, every activity, and every breath with personality and spirit. It is about allowing your presence to become a beacon of light, not because you are attempting to save anyone else, but rather because you are no longer concealing your brightness. When you do this, you transform into what Jung referred to as a whole person, which is someone who has accepted both their light and their shadow, someone who has traversed their own particular underworld and come back with treasure. The treasure you possess is your frequency, and it is the most valuable possession you already possess. Therefore, if you're still looking, still having doubts, and still wondering when your awakening will eventually come, you should know that it is not coming. It is already here. Every single instant, you make the decision to choose reality over delusion. In every cry that you have shed in the dark by yourself, it is there. Every time you've taken a breath, in those moments when you wanted to vanish but didn't, it's there. You're not waiting for your frequency to be ready. Rather, it is waiting for you to be genuine all the time. Eventually, when you give yourself permission to stop pretending, stopping pretending to please others, and stopping satisfying yourself, when you eventually give yourself permission to, when you begin to focus on yourself, that is when the signal begins to be received. That is when the music starts, clear, and it will not sound like anyone else's music. It will be unique. It is not going to adhere to the norms, and those who are still clinging to the noise will not understand what is going on. On the other hand, it will sound like home to those who are awake and others who have also discovered their music during this time. A new planet will be constructed by the combination of those frequencies. It is not a flawless world, but it is a world that is honest and has a spirit. Imagine a world in which people don't merely exist. They have an impact. A universe in which energy serves as the medium of communication and love is not a transaction, but rather a vibration. You will know exactly who you are in that world, not because someone taught you or because a book defined you, but because every cell in your body hums with the frequency of your reality. This is the only way you will become aware of who you are. It is the sound of a soul that is no longer sleeping. It is the sound of a soul that is awakening. It is the sound of a soul that is complete. You will never be able to forget that sound once you have experienced it. The purpose of your presence in this world is not to discover who you are. Rather, it is to bring yourself into the world. Your frequency should be the one to guide you. When you have a complete comprehension of what it means to awaken, however, you will also have the realization that this path does not truly come to an end. One does not arrive, rather, one develops. As you delve further into your own frequency, you will discover other layers that were formed by suffering that you were unaware you were carrying. Occasionally, the anguish that you were experiencing was not even your own. It originated from generations that came before you, and it was transmitted via silence, trauma, and habits that no one had the courage to confront. Jung referred to this phenomenon as the collective unconscious, which he defined as the ancestral echoes that continue to haunt us. Awakening is not simply a revolution for the individual. It is a revolution for the entire generation. You are not only improving the resonance of your lineage, but you are also healing the fragmentation that you have caused in yourself. The reason why the work is so difficult is because it can feel like chaos and anguish before it ever feels like serenity. This is the reason why the job is so difficult. You are demolishing something that was constructed over the course of millennia. And yet, something within you has made the decision to become awake. The lies, the masks, and the quiet have left you with the impression that it is all going to end with me. As soon as the soul is confronted with the truth, it is unable to unsee. The trip, despite the fact that it might be alone at times, is revered because every step you take in the direction of your truth causes waves to be sent out. Ripples that will reach your children, your friends, and even strangers who have never met you but have sensed your energy in anything you made, such as a word, a song, a glance, or a choice. As a result of living in alignment, this is the understated power. You're not only able to alter your own life, but you also become the frequency that assists others in remembering their own. You are not here to please. Rather, you are here to make an impression. In addition, the only way to have a genuine impact on this planet is to fully embody your own truth in such a way that it cannot help but raise the consciousness of others. No more pretending, no more shrinking, and no more waiting for someone to give you permission to be totally alive. These phrases are no longer acceptable. Your frequency, which is raw, imperfect, and whole, is what the world needs. Consequently, tune in, crank up the volume on your soul, and let the world to hear who you truly are, loud, clear, and without expressions of regret. The story does not finish here. Regarding your awakening,